Reckless 2.0 here with Vickiss and D-Train. Once again, D-Train, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Greetings. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well as I can be.
Likewise. Same here. Brutal conditions indeed. But yes, pretty excited about today's guest, D-Train. We have Professor Robin DiAngelo, author of What Does It Mean to Be White? It's What Does It Mean to Be White? Developing White Racial Literacy. She is also a frequent writer, and she's actually had some pretty interesting articles. Actually, one that one that's very recent that certainly caught our attention. The title of it, and it's on alternate.org. Why people freak out when they're called out about race. And she discusses the concept of white fragility, which is very interesting. She is also a professor, multicultural professor at Westfield State University, and a PhD from the University of Washington. We very much look forward to having an engaging and interesting and constructive dialogue. Anything before we go to our guest, any housekeeping, anything you want to add, D-Train?
Nah, I got nothing in mind. Let's just get to our guest.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. Professor DiAngelo, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great.
How are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Yep. When the sun shines in Seattle, it's a very big deal. So we're all excited because it's hot today.
I'm sure.
I know you can't relate on the East Coast.
It's a little muggy. It gets a little musty out there, But yes. But greetings. Thank you for taking the time to come to our program. We very much look forward to the dialogue. I guess before we get into the questions and all of that, is there anything you would like to let the listening audience know about yourself that wasn't previously covered?
Oh, well, I'm white. That might have been assumed, but I think it's really important for me to say it. And then one little detail is that I am no longer at Westfield State University. I did leave that position. So I'm a former professor at Westfield State. I'm currently doing consulting and serving as director of equity for a large nonprofit organization.
Okay. I'll definitely make sure that I'll change that in the description. Absolutely.
All right.
Yes. I guess I'll start off with let's see, your article, the most recent one, on why white people freak out when they're called out about race. And you spoke about white fragility, which is also an expansion on a section of the article that I also read, which was What Does It Mean to Be White, which is also, about your publication, I guess. Would you mind starting off with what possessed you, or I guess what led you towards writing what it means to be white, and especially writing this article for Alternate that's just recent, back from March of 2015. Why white people freak out when they're called about race? What exactly made you write about white fragility?
Well, let's see. Let me start with the title of my book, What Does It Mean to Be White? Developing White Racial Literacy, is speaking to or naming the reality that most whites are illiterate when it comes to the topic of race. We're taught to be illiterate. We're socialized into it. And so we really can't engage beyond the most superficial, meaningless platitudes, right? Oh, people just need to, or, I'm sure you've heard, the one-line answers to race from many white people. So we really just are not able to engage with any complexity. And for me, it started because I was myself a well-intended liberal white. I was a vegetarian and blah, blah, blah. And So therefore, I was good to go because it was really about open-mindedness. And about 20 years ago, I got a position as what was called at the time diversity trainer. And I did sincerely that my open-mindedness, so-called, was qualifications enough to go into the workplace and lead groups of primarily white people in conversations about race. And I was really in for the most profound journey of my entire life. The first level of that was that in no way did my so-called open-mindedness prepare me to engage. In fact, I think that progressive white liberal is really the hardest to deal with because we're going to put all our energy into trying to convince you that we have no racism and no energy into the self-reflection that's required, right? No taking responsibility for our positions. And so just the combination of working side by side with people of color who were consistently challenging me in a way that I had never been challenged before, because part of being white is I could, be fully adult, college educated, and never have my racial worldview challenged. And I wouldn't have even been able to tell you I had a racial worldview. And so that was the first step. And I'll never forget, I've told this story before, but I'll never forget the first day we went through a 5-day train the trainer in order to be prepared to go out and lead these conversations in the workplace. And the second half of the first day, this white woman in the room calls out, "All the white racists in the room, raise your hand." And just about every single white person in the room raised their hand, except for me, because I sat there going, oh my God, there's no way I'm raising my hand. I'm not racist. And I went home feeling like I was the good one, and I had demonstrated that to everybody by not raising my hand. And I look back now, and I would raise my hand because it means something very different to me than it meant at the time. And the other piece I realize now, too, was how clever it was for that woman to ask that question, because in just one moment, she surfaced where the white people were in their understanding of what racism even was. So it was experiences like that. And then day in and day out, just the white patterns are so predictable. It's like a script. And when you see it enough over and over and over, you start to be able to piece together how we pull off this false consciousness of living so separately, having so much internalized superiority, and insisting that nothing's going on. And, I have enough of it in myself to connect to, but I was growing enough and getting more insight that I could kind of use my own socialization, the patterns that other people were consistently reinforcing, and my newfound understanding through working with people of color, and just start to put the pieces of the puzzle together to lead to answer that question. Why do we freak out so much over this? So I'll stop there because I know I said a lot, and see if you want to ask me another question or you want me to keep going.
That certainly was, it's very, very interesting. You said that you didn't raise your hand, but that now you would. So are you saying that you are a racist? Yes.
Okay. I'm saying I'm a racist, but let me be really clear. Please don't take that out of context about what I mean by that. White supremacy is the foundation of, I would say, the Western world. It's not the entire world at this point. It's the key social contract that's been in place for hundreds of years. It's the water that we swim in, and I was socialized into it. From the moment I opened my eyes, from even where I could be born, the hospital I could be born in, how my mother was treated by the staff, what was the race of the person who delivered her, what was the race of the people who cleaned that room, at the end of the day. I was born into a racial hierarchy in which I was granted the position as superior. And there's just no way to avoid it, and insisting that you're unaffected by it can only hold it in place. So I mean it in that way. I mean it as someone who's committed my life to challenging it. But it's reinforced 24/7 for everybody. And if you are not intentionally challenging it, every day, you're necessarily just colluding with it because the default is racism. So, and everything is set up to just beautifully reproduce it. Our schools are set up to reproduce it. I think our schools are fantastically effective sorting machines, and they sort people into their hierarchy of value based on their class and their race and their gender. Everything is set up to reproduce it. You cannot avoid it. I mean, I will argue to the ground a white person who tries to tell me they could avoid that message. You know, we have different degrees of our ability to see it and to resist it, but denial is not one of them. Denying it isn't one of them. Mm-hmm. So does that help explain what I mean when I say, yes, I am racist?
Oh, yes, certainly,
okay,
yes.
Sure.
I certainly understand, you know, what you mean by, and I certainly don't know exactly what you mean by taking it out of context because, you know, the entire, you know, all of society is the context, and I certainly understand that.
Oh, I meant sometimes, you know, somebody could print this transcript and quote me as saying I'm a racist without explaining what I mean, and then that, you know how people are. They like to discredit those of us in the work. I'm sure you have that experience too.
Yes, but for different reasons, obviously, because I can't be a racist.
Right.
And yes. But I do think it, you know, I do think it's, you know, of course, important, you know, especially for, you know, especially for non-white people to hear a white person be, you know, be as candid as possible about their involvement in this, I guess, a terrorist organization known as white supremacy, white people. Yes, but.
Yeah. And what I thought that meant at that, you know, that first day when she asked that question, I thought it meant, do you consciously dislike people of color? You know, do you consciously prejudice against them? And of course not, you know, so therefore I'm not racist. And that's the definition, you know, maybe a subtext is, are you a bad person? And that's a piece of why white people freak out so much when called out on it, you know, is what they're hearing. One, we're very misinformed in what race is, what it is and how it works. But we also hear people saying, you are immoral.
Well, you know, certainly participation in this system is immoral, especially because white people are not ignorant about what's going on and what's happening, and complacency is, you know, it makes you culpable. But, D-Train?
Yes.
Good evening, Dr. DiAngelo.
Hi.
Hi. I just kind of want to follow up on what you said when you said that you were a racist. And I guess, what is your working definition of racism, if you have one?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It is a system of racial hierarchy, right? A system that assigns people these constructed categories of race, and then assigns value to those categories or lack of value to those categories. And it's built into everything. It is the default of the society. So it's built into the norms, the traditions, the history, the criminal justice system, the education system. It's the root of everything, right? And I would add, and this is a piece too that gets to is it Victor's question about why white people freak out so much? You know, on one hand, we hear that we're bad people and we're well-intended and want to resist that. But on another, since you said you appreciate it when white people are honest about this stuff, it feels good to be told you're superior, right? It serves us. We're invested in it. It feels good. We feel entitled. I mean, how can you miss the message of superiority? So you have to fight it, but I don't know that I can ever fully root it out. And I certainly can't root it out by not paying attention to it. So some of it is maybe the empathetic parts of ourselves feel bad that we would have hurt somebody. But there's other parts of ourselves that are, how dare you question my position? So I wanted to add, I mean, racism is, it sounds a little clinical when I say it's institutionalized. It's similar to misogyny under patriarchy, right? We live under patriarchy, male dominance, male superiority, and from that comes a kind of contempt and hatred of women that's built into everything. And it's similar under white supremacy. It's a racial hierarchy in which contempt and hatred of people of color. And, I really have to say it. Often I feel like white people fundamentally hate black people. I think you just scratch that liberal veneer and there's so much hostility. I'm just left with that feeling, and I don't really know how you can look around the society and deny it. But I think the way out is we have to begin with admitting to this.
Well, what led you to that conclusion? Part of it is just the way white people respond when you push just the slightest little push or scratch on these trite, superficial narratives that we love to recite, right? Just push, bring up race at the dinner table with a bunch of white people, and you'll get the first round of just emptiness, like, I just think people should take responsibility, or I don't really notice race, or, X, Y, and Z. And then just ask one more question, and people start to get really emotional and really angry. And it's a mean-spirited kind of anger that comes out. And it reminds me, it's a modern form of, I'm sure you've seen the lynching postcards. Have you guys seen those postcards?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And the expressions on those people's faces of glee at the suffering, right? Like, okay, if you thought this human being was just an animal and that they needed to be, disciplined, you don't take pleasure in disciplining an animal. But there's so much pleasure taken in the suffering of these murdered people that it's something different than anything else I think that exists. And so what I'm talking about is that kind of glee at the suffering, that kind of, did you just watch that video that's circulating about that pool party in the neighborhood in L.A.?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you seen that video? Like that same thing that just kind of like, God damn it, you will not talk back to me, right? Like, I own you. I control you. And we just lose our mind if we feel like we're losing that control. And that's what I saw in that police officer. It's just like, you will do what I say. And we become very irrational. Toni Morrison has pretty fascinating analysis of it. A few other, like Sandika, she wrote a book called Learning to be White, that, we split off the parts of ourselves that we find unbearable, and we project those onto most particularly black people, right? Because so much of it is irrational. So much of it is a perversion of what's really going on. So when white people say, I don't feel safe talking about race, what a perversion of the true direction of violence, right? It's so profoundly trivializing that it leaves me speechless, right, to claim that you don't feel safe in a mere conversation about race. But that's what we do all the time. We twist and pervert the real direction.
Mm-hmm. And I certainly would like to ask, and other people, listeners would like to ask, do you think the love of seeing black people being harmed has kept like the media coverage of this Eric Garner stuff, the pool party, things of that nature, keeping that really in media? I personally remember seeing the shooting of Walter Scott. When that happened, it was shown on CNN over and over, unedited, this guy getting gunned down, and it's kind of almost white people enjoying their black snuff.
Oh God, yeah. I'm thinking about Michael Brown lying in the street. I mean, it's just not. It's unthinkable that you would leave someone who had died. Like if you see a car accident, like it's so covered, right? You just are not allowed to see somebody's corpse, basically. And he's just left there lying. You can't even photograph the coffins coming home from Iraq, right? You are not allowed to show the coffin. But look, I mean, it's just, there it is, right? That is the difference in the inherent value or lack thereof. And I think that it does push, in the same way that, my mind is blanking on Tillett, the boy that was murdered in the South back in the 50s and 60s, Emmett Till. It's similar. It's like, I think, my part of my objective in the work I do is to connect the so-called average white person, right? To not let us distance ourselves and say, oh, it's just extremists or it's just, illiterate Southern people, right? I want to get the average white person and connect them. And I think that the police serves the function of policing those boundaries so that we can have our good schools and our good neighborhoods, and we can hoard those resources and make sure that our children are going to get what we believe they deserve, and we don't care whose children that costs, right? And the police do a great job, and we don't see what goes on over there, and we frankly, don't care. But video has brought that, and it's humanized. So yes, on the one hand, I see your point about this kind of black snuff. It also nags at the conscience in a way that is not deniable, like we were able to do before. And so it's this push-pull, right? Racism is a brilliantly adaptive system. It will adapt to these challenges too. I mean, for example, police now have to actually answer to what they do. They may steal me in, get a pass, but they are forced to at least justify their actions when they never had to do that before. But eventually it's going to adapt, and they'll figure out how to have that basically be meaningless. I mean, it's kind of meaningless right now, but yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. D-Train? D-Train, you got dropped. Are you there?
Yeah, I got signal faded, something. I don't know what happened. Interestingly enough, my signal never fades, and so that's weird. I had a follow-up question on your definition of racism. The basic gist of it is that it's white people who sort non-white people in the hierarchies for the purpose of dominating them. And I wanted to know, under your definition of racism, have you ever practiced white supremacy? And if you had an example of that.
Ooh, that's good. I think absolutely I have practiced it, but I also don't think of it always as a specific act, but I think about it as I actually feel like superiority is kind of coded in our bones and our muscles and in my health and in my posture and what I see open to me, what I'm interested in, what I'm not interested in. I actually think the most profound example of this deeply internalized white supremacy is the absence of loss that white people feel about not having people of color in their lives. How could we call a neighborhood good if it's segregated? But every day we do that. And I think about it as I could be born into, learn, play, study, worship, love, work, and die in racial segregation as a white person, and no one who's guided me or mentored me or loved me has ever conveyed to me that there was any loss whatsoever in that segregation. That is so deep. For me, that's what it looks like. It's not, do I say, the N-word, or do I, although of course those thoughts they're precognitive. Before I can even kind of stop myself, I get these flashes of thoughts, and because you grow up hearing very negative things. But I think it's more that kind of the absence of loss, the watching, loving Friends and Sex and the City and Seinfeld and Girls, and Desperate Housewives, and all of these shows that are hugely popular that all take place in New York City, and every one of them is completely white. Like, that's white supremacy. And loving those shows, right, and not seeing anything remarkable about that. And it has to be a relentless slap in the face to people of color. So that, to me, is white supremacy. And that's why I was trying to explain it. It's more than just kind of the institutions and the laws, and it's also that deeply taken for granted lack of inherent value in the perspectives or experiences of people of color. I can live my life without ever knowing people of color's perspective on anything, and nobody's ever suggested that I would be missing anything. My teachers didn't suggest it. My textbooks didn't suggest it. The media doesn't suggest it. Nothing suggests it. That, to me, is white supremacy.
Okay. I guess pushing on, so since you have a specific example about something particular that you did, has a non-white person ever accused you of being racist? Or doing something?
Oh, I can tell you, certainly, yes. Because I work very closely with people of color in what I do today, and I wouldn't be able to say half of what I'm able to say without their incredible mentorship and their challenges, and they're calling me out on my stuff. I can think of one that, for me, is pretty loud from the past, and I'll try to think of a more recent one, and trust me, it'll come to me as we talk more. But I can remember going out several years ago with somebody that I was dating, and we met this other couple, and they were a black couple. My partner and I were white. And as soon as I saw that they were friends of hers, and as soon as I saw this other couple, I immediately wanted them to know that I wasn't racist. So I began to tell them all the racist things that my family said as examples of see how I know all of that is racist. And it was a very uncomfortable night, incredibly uncomfortable, and I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea what it was. And looking back years later, that is the most excruciating incident I've ever kind of done, because I subjected them all night long to racism. And does it matter whose mouth I put it in? I just went on all night. I can't even imagine how horrible that dinner was. And, all in the service of showing, how down I was. I think there's a lot of things. I have a friend who, a black woman, who would go out to lunch, and one day she said, "Robin, you talk over me a lot, and that is your racism." Right? And I was just like, "No, it isn't. Oh my God, no, I talk over everybody, And, went on to say, in my family, if you didn't talk over people, you didn't get in, and, all the ways you want to excuse it. And she had to work with me for quite a while. Thank God she didn't give up on me. But she just said, when you do it to me, the impact is racism. Here you are, white woman, just dominating the conversation, cutting me off, taking over. And as I thought about it, I realized part of how my racism was manifesting is not having to understand that I bring my history with me, and that when I did that to her, it had a very different impact. And what I was essentially saying by insisting that, I do this to everybody, so therefore it can't be racism, was I'm going to just indulge myself in my preferred mode of communicating, and if it silences you, then, that's really your problem, because I'm not going to change. For me, that's an example of white arrogance and white cluelessness, that we are racial beings, and that our actions have an impact because we are positioned differently. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Did you have a? I did. You have like just kind of a. I mean, I don't know if they can articulate it better. Just the kind of. You said racial cluelessness, and I think you mentioned this in one of your articles on also that too, where you said that white people in general are ignorant about racism. I guess could you, like, what do you mean ignorant? Because people seem ignorant.
Yeah, I actually, I appreciate you asking me that because this is where I think we're such pieces of work and can be so maddening. Because on the one hand, we really are taught to be oblivious, right? So I know it's hard to imagine, but there is this place where we just we don't see it, we don't have to see it, nothing compels us to see it, we live separate. It all works for us, and we're kind of clueless. We think racism is, this mean, conscious dislike, and so we don't get it. And on the other hand, we totally know that this is going on. We do. We know it, but we will not admit it. And I know it sounds a little confusing, but it's like both of those things are true. We're oblivious, and we're not oblivious. And this is what makes us so confusing to deal with. And I don't know, I don't know you guys very well or anything, but it's helped me a lot to think about a place where I experience oppression in order to understand how I collude with racism. So I might say to you, well, this is a patriarchal society, and this is a male-dominated society, and there's the message everywhere that women are less. And you theoretically might agree with me, but probably don't understand how you're part of that. Don't see that in yourself or your own relations. And so if you can relate to that, and you might even feel a little defensive if I push you on it, which I can't because I don't know you well enough, but I'm trying to get a place that you might be able to relate to where you have a similar confusion, if you will. But, when I do my workshops, I say everything I'm saying to you. I say we know no one misses the message it's better to be white. I say that to rooms full of white people, and you know what? I get away with it. It's amazing to me. And part of it is I've been doing this a long time and I have authority behind my name and my voice. Part of it is that it's undeniable. And another part of it is that I'm white. And so they can hear it from me in a way that I do not believe you would ever get away with saying that to a room full of white people. So even as I use my position and my privilege to challenge racism, I also recognize that I'm simultaneously reinforcing racism, right? Because I'm the authority on it. It's me they're listening to. And they're listening to me because I'm more comfortable for them, even as I push them harder than a person of color could push them. And so it's this just both end, kind of this catch-22. And I have not figured a way out of it in terms of how I reinforce racism even as I attempt to challenge it.
So
we moved off there a little bit, but
oh no, we're right on time. We're right on schedule, on topic. Yeah. So I guess you're saying that white people won't admit it, and they're giving the illusion of being ignorant and oblivious to this, but white people know good and well. So therefore, white people are not ignorant about racism. That would be deception, correct?
Yeah. We're not ignorant that it's better to be white. We're not, you've heard those experiments when they've asked white groups of people how much money would it take for you to change your race, and basically nothing. And at the same time, we're able to kind of deny that that's racism. No, back again, racism is, they're the rednecks, that lynch people, and
Yeah.
we don't relate to that, so that's not us.
So that would be deception. That would be the practice of racism by trying to fool non-white people that, these are, the good white people that I'm not racist, like you stated before. And it's really, it's to continue to cover up that, white people are continuously racist. And also to just, to answer your question about the feminism and patriarchy analogy, that I certainly do not subscribe to that analogy. I think that many times it comes up to conflate the issue of racism. They're two different systems, and also it's being a black male and hearing a white female talking about, you're participating in patriarchy when white females make more than black and Hispanic males on an average basis, and there's most of those lynching photos were over white females and things of that nature. I certainly think that could be maybe a part of that deception, because that's also is used to derail arguments when speaking about racism. There's patriarchy and this and that, when honestly, a lot of white females are running the show.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that, and maybe that's an example for D-Train of me stepping into it, right? I can tell you that my intention was to help draw from something you do relate to, but I can see that as a black man, it's not the same as being a white man. That masculinity is so different based on that. So, my apologies.
Well,
point taken.
Oh yes, I see that could be it's a practice of conscious or deliberate or unconscious
If that's the impact it had on you, for sure.
Right? Certainly, and it's a common, it's a common thing, and it's, certainly, there's, sexism, and this, and it's used to stifle, people getting their vertebrae snapped, and, it covers up the fact that white females are the most employed and have the lowest, unemployment, in the country, and things of that nature.
It covers up the fact that if I want to, I have to be effeminate in order to earn the same amount of money as white men, which is absurd. So I feel like the whole sexism argument when it comes to black male, it really doesn't. I don't know. It really doesn't hold up to me. The black males seem to be the most vulnerable population, at least in this country, and I would probably surmise on the planet.
No, you've given me a lot to think about. I certainly consciously wasn't trying to take race off the table, but I can see how it has that impact. And I want to keep thinking about this false, especially if you hear it a lot. You hear people, if they use it to minimize racism, it's really problematic. And it sounds like it's also, the irony is that it's inherently minimizing racism to use that as an example. Are you guys there?
Yeah. Just kind of reflecting. Yeah, I hear that a lot in conversations, particularly with white women, and I think that Vic had a good point about how a lot of the lynchings were actually instigated by white women. So it's kind of like what? like you're saying this to me? Like,
right, and the number, the group that benefited the most from affirmative action, as flawed as affirmative action was white women. And I've thought about that a lot. It's like, okay, so white men are in the workplace, they're in those positions, and they're not opening them up to women and people of color. Then they're forced to do so, in some sectors. And so who do they hire? They hire white women, because at least that's their sisters and their wives, and they're going to benefit from that. But they did not open them anywhere near in the same way to people of color.
Yes, which doubles the white household income, which is why,
exactly.
which contributes to why the wealth gap has widened and tripled since affirmative action was implemented. which is also denied in part of that the false ignorance, the deception of racism, white supremacy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really big problem because when white ignorance is put as kind of like the main cause of racism, I think it confuses black people. And I hear a lot of black people talking about, oh, well, white people are just ignorant. They need to be educated. And, some of the most educated white people on the planet, I'm sure, are racist. And
not only that, I mean, if you've tried to educate them, they don't want it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, who wants to reject some, further information or knowledge? Most people wouldn't want to reject that, but if you try to educate white people on racism, there's no way they want that, right? Because the investments are really deep.
Well, the people who should be educating people on racism are white people. White people know the most about racism because they practice it each and every day. It's just the issue of deception, of course, because they have to practice racism because they're white. But certainly, the people who, if anyone's ignorant about racism, it's the victims of it. Because if we knew how racism operates, if we weren't so, a lot of us just so brain trashed by white supremacy, we would have solved this problem a long time ago. And that's also a major part of the deception.
Mm-hmm. Well, I work with a lot of white affinity groups. And it's just, I'm just sitting here thinking, oh, God, and it's so hard to get white people to admit to this. The best I can do is try to model it, but I'm sure you've tried. There's something so tenacious about this. What is the word? Well, I guess the word is right. I'm thinking, what is the word for that hatred? What do you guys think when I say that I think essentially white people hate black people?
I actually had a question. I had a question about that. And so my thought was, so in relation to, I guess, what is the relation of white people's relationship with black folks in comparison to other non-white groups, in your opinion? And then I had one more question after that.
Well, a thought I had is, like, obviously we can't be superior without you, right? Like, we have to have that other against which we can rise, right? We can be where we are. So there's that. I think the ultimate racial other in the white mind are black people. And that doesn't mean there isn't racism towards other groups of color, but the ultimate is anti-black.
Yeah, anti-blackness definitely seems to be the driver among which racism, white supremacy is operates on. And it seems like in the absence of black people, the white people will find the next darkest group to pick on. So, and then my follow-up question on that is, what would it take for white people to decease their uncontrollable hatred against black people? Is there anything that white people can do? Is there anything that black people can do?
Oh boy, I'm hesitating to answer, and I will answer. I'm just saying my hesitation is that the hope is political. In other words, when I feel hopeless as a white person, that's very different, because ultimately that hopelessness serves me. And so I can't indulge in it. And having said that, right, and your hopelessness serves me too, right? But my hopelessness doesn't serve you. And that's what I mean when I say emotions are political. They have a function. And so for me, the question is always not, is it true, is it false, is it right, is it wrong? It's how does it function, And I don't think it's going to end in my lifetime. I don't think it's natural. It's taught for sure, but it's taught so immediately. Honestly, I just think you'd have to be raised in a bubble, and I don't know how you can be because the people raising you would be from the system. The way I think about it is, I can say after all these years of working on this that I do less damage to people of color than I used to do. I think I do less harm. And there are a significant number of people of color that do consider me to be an ally to them. I could not have said that before I started this work. But, and so it's kind of like, yes, we have to change the institutions, but we have to change ourselves because we are the institution. So we have to care enough. And I know a lot of people that do this work, they rely on this appealing to a sense of loss for white people, like what did you lose by giving up your ethnicity? Have you heard that approach? Like white people have to claim their ethnic roots, and have you guys ever heard of that?
No, that's not.
I mean, I've heard that in certain white people. A handful of white people say that. I've certainly heard that expression out there. I certainly have my thoughts on it, but yeah.
Yeah, me too. Well, but I'm just telling you, in these circles of like white people who are working on educating other white people, that's what they appeal to, and that just doesn't work for me. I mean, I want us to admit that we feel superior, and then look at ourselves in the mirror and say, is that acceptable to you? Because if you don't actively do something about it, you're basically accepting it. And so fine, carry on, but look at yourself first and say, I choose to collude with white supremacy. Just say it. And then go about your business. But don't try to say that you care and not do anything. Right? Not work on it, not get involved, not keep educating yourself, not, being willing to make mistakes and show yourself and stumble around and, I'm actually working on a piece right now. It's called The White Fragility and the Rules of Engagement. But it's like the jig is up. We're all racist, and once white people anyway, and once you just let go of that, then you can actually appreciate seeing how it works in your life instead of trying to deny that it does. So.
Interesting. Certainly, it would have been absurd 50 years ago to say that white people just need to admit, that racism exists and admit that white supremacy exists because there were signs up, and there it was explicitly stated, and it was, and white people had no, and that's the thing, and I guess it leads into another question. Just what exactly do white people need to be educated in? It's it's in the title of your book. Letting white people speaking about racial literacy for white people. What exactly do white people need to learn? What information do white people need to know? To I guess in this problem that you're stating, even in the title of your book.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Well, okay, I'm gonna get to that in a sec, but I want to say something about how, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, no, you didn't have to tell them to admit to this superiority because it was absolutely socially acceptable to just openly say, yes, right, we are superior. But that's my point about the system being really adaptive and really clever. Post-civil rights, it's not as acceptable anymore to say that, right? Now, it's colorblind. And actually, that made it much harder to challenge racism. It's like Eduardo Bonillo Silva's book, Racism Without Racists, right? We have racism, but nobody's racist, right? And so it just adapted to that challenge, and now this is what we have, right? What people need to understand, I mean, I'm kind of picking up on your point, right? It seems like it's frustrating to have white people kind of seem to be not knowing this, and that my book is reinforcing that. So that's good food for thought for me, if that's indeed what you're hinting at. But basically everything I said, I seriously couldn't have said any of this to you before I started getting my worldview challenged by people of color, and that's part of it. White people do not have, for the most part, authentic cross-racial relationships. And I always tell white people, if you have friends of color and you're not talking about racism or they're not challenging you on your racism, the relationship's nowhere near as authentic as you think it is. So we need to understand what racism is, let go of this damn good, bad, stop denying it, admit what we know. And so, but I do think that moral piece, that shame about, and this is why we're pieces of work. I mean, we have arrogance, but we also have shame. This is why we're just so frustrating, I would imagine. You kind of have to hit all of it. You have to knock down that arrogance and have some humility, but you also have to stop feeling ashamed if it's locking you in and keeping you immobilized, and it's becoming an excuse for you to just keep getting your goods,
Understandable. Understandable. Let's see, what time is it? Yes, actually. Would you be able to or open to a couple of questions from the phone line?
Sure. How about 3?
Okay. Yes, and if anybody would like to call in, the call-in number is 917-889-2965. That's 917-889-2965. Let's see. We have Player Hater. Your line is open.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Hi.
Yes,
hello?
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on this subject. I did have one question. So I actually listened to a talk of yours, I think that you gave at University of Washington not too long ago. And one thing that struck me is you said that there is a unique aspect about racism that you have from being white that people of color don't have. And I was wondering if you could expound a little bit more, particularly on that unique aspect. Here's something that someone as a person of color just fundamentally won't understand about how race works in today's society.
Yeah, well, they probably don't understand the particular psyche, or what I think of as this kind of deadly brew inside of us of all these confusing aspects, right? Knowing, not knowing, denying, shame, arrogance. But oftentimes when people introduce me, they'll say something like, this is an expert, and it's like, that implies that my learning is finished. And I mean, I hope you can tell by this discussion we've had today that my learning is not finished. I have some expertise, and so when I do that, it's kind of a strategic move to, I'm hearing some weird stuff, so I say I have some expertise on whiteness that people of color don't have because I'm an insider to it. But people of color have expertise on whiteness that I'll never have. I think you probably have much more insight than we have. And then I leave that to, and so I invite people of color to hold me accountable and to challenge me in this talk. And I often will say, I don't invite white people to do that. I actually don't want to be challenged by white people who haven't thought about this. But people of color are in a really different position. So I'm just trying to acknowledge both those pieces. I'm an insider, which gives me some understanding, but as an insider, I'm never going to totally get it. And I don't have to, I don't bear the brunt of it in the way that you do. Does that help?
That does help, and I didn't mean it as, attacking in any way. One thing...
Oh, no, I didn't feel it that way. But
yeah, one thing that a white friend of mine told me years ago was that, he basically said, you have no idea, what gets said about you, once you leave the room. Leaving the room being, me being the only black person there, and then it's a room full of white people. So since then, I've been very curious as to what racism looks like from the other side.
Wow. So, yeah. That's not usually done very often in my presence, probably because most people pretty much know who I am and what I do. But have you read Two-Faced Racism?
That one I have not.
That's Joe Fegan's. He took 800 college students, or a big number of college students, over the course of a term, and had them keep a journal of every racist incident, comment that they were involved in over the term, and there are millions of them.
Oh yeah.
And this is young people today. So if you want to know what they say when you're out of the room, read that.
Yeah. There was an article on the Griot that was very similar. I think it was called My White Liberal Racist Friends.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was by, then a student at UCLA, and he basically did exactly that. Talked about the conversations that other white people would have with him because they thought he was cool, one of them. They were comfortable espousing these views, and it wasn't. Well, to be honest, it wasn't just white people. White people and Asian people were having very anti-black comments. But I try to sort of I have some friends who are white, and I try to tell them even this liberal progressive world that people like to think they live in, for me, it's not as benign as you think it is. But
right.
As you well know, then their walls go up and oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. Racism is over, blah blah blah. But all you have to do is turn on CNN and see that's just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. On the one hand, you can just say, you can feel really frustrated with it and just say, this is bullshit. You're not ignorant. You do know. But then you're going to deal with people, since white people freak out and heavily, and you have to deal with them. You have to navigate with them. You have to work with them.
Yeah. And that's the conundrum that particularly people who are trying to climb a professional ladder of color. You run into these conversations, and if you actually really want to be honest and frank and call somebody on it, professionally, it's going to set you, you'll be lucky if there's no blowback. At worst, it'll be 1, 2, 3 steps, or, you might even be let go. So,
yep.
It's almost like being able to, talk about it frankly is, a luxury that, I can't speak for Vickiss, but myself, I don't actually have.
Yeah. Do you live in Seattle?
No, I live in the Bay Area. Yeah. So that is, that's the environment I'm sort of dealing with. And I've lived in other places. Mostly, they've all claimed to be the same.
Would you say that the white liberal racism plays out the same in the Bay Area as it does up here in the Pacific Northwest?
I don't have a lot of experience in the Pacific Northwest, so I can't say exactly. I can't actually say.
Because you said you heard me at the University of Washington, so I kind of just assumed.
I saw a YouTube video.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't actually there, but there's a video of when he was talking. Right. And it was really good.
Okay.
But that was, it did bring up one question. If you'll indulge me, I do have one other question. So the conundrum that's faced a person of color is sort of living in this world of racism without racists is that practically speaking, you can't really get ahead unless white people. Well, I don't want to say whether they like you, but it's really hard to without the help or assistance or patronage of someone who's white. But the problem is that, basically you ideally you'd be able to identify, this is someone who can actually help me succeed, and they see me as a human being just like them, and here's this other group of people who don't. Because nobody wants to actually say they're racist or admit to any of those behaviors, you're left, if you're a person of color, you're left trying to navigate this landscape where everybody's going to say the same thing, where I'm not racist, I view people equally, blah, 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 blah. But you trust the wrong person, and, then there's, professional damage, emotional damage, and the whole thing can snowball. In your studies, is there anything that you've come across, any advice that you would give to people of color to help them navigate this world and the so-called, and I kind of disagree with this term a little bit, but this new racism that you talked about in your What advice would you give to people who actually live in this?
I mean,
other end?
in my sense of listening to you, I mean, as you've thought about it a lot, and you have your strategies, so some of this probably will be redundant, but like kind of choose your battles, and like you know you gotta survive. But probably the number one would be find some white people who you can count on, that that you can talk to, and that sometimes they may be the better person to deal with the person who's a problem. I remember in my early days of kind of getting mentored around the diversity training, and the women, we'd have some hostile white guy in there giving us trouble, and the women of color would pull me aside and say, "You have to go talk to him. We're not going to do it. You have to do it." And oh my God, I mean, it was very intimidating for me, but I would just do it, which was really good for me, and I built my skills, and he could hear it better from me. So to find a few, I'd like to believe there's a couple like that, or even one or two people who are right on the verge and is teachable, and then lean on them a bit where they can run interference or whatever. Yeah.
Oh no, and I've definitely found some very very good patrons who've done amazing things for me. But it's more the initial evaluation, because I've also made this thing where I think this person who is white, could actually help me out in this instance, and it's been the polar opposite. One of the worst things I could have done on confiding in them.
Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, I'm sure your gut at the time told you that you could probably take the risk, right?
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So there's probably no way around those traps.
Okay. That was all.
Wish I could be more helpful.
Well, I mean, there's, at least for my end, I haven't come up with any perfect solution. So, it's real world problems is always an easy answer.
Yeah.
So I think I took 2 out of the 3 questions. So maybe Vickiss, you might want to find out.
Who am I talking to? Who was I talking to?
Oh, so this is Player Hater. As I'd mentioned, I don't really use my real name on broadcast just because.
Oh, I see.
I'm worried about professional drawbacks.
Yeah,
but
no.
I've listened, I've called in, I've chatted. I've definitely gotten some a good amount of constructive information from this broadcast and others. But
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care.
Thank you.
I come to San Francisco sometimes. If you're ever up here, we'll have coffee, I hope.
Oh, yeah. Vickiss has my information, so if you're in the area, I think he can help connect us, I hope. So, I would actually look forward to that.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Victor, are you there?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to sign off, but thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm very appreciative of you being so open with your time and being so candid. It's very, very appreciated.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
All right, take care. You too, D-Train. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Reckless 2.0. That was Dr. Robin DiAngelo. What does it mean to be white? Yes. So yes, D-Train, that was our guest. What do you think?
I think she had some good information. I think she admitted to practicing racism on the program, particularly around that accusing the most members of the most vulnerable population on the planet of practicing patriarchy. There was one thing I wanted to ask her, just a major act of racism that I've noticed, just everywhere. And actually, I can read that letter. This is actually what prompted me to want to ask her this question that I didn't get a chance to ask her. But you remember the letter that I showed you from the quote-unquote neighborhood forum that I'm a member of?
Yeah.
where some white people in the neighborhood accused me of being a racist. And I can read the letter a little later. But I wanted to ask if she had any strategies that she could give or suggest to Black people to counter that major act of racism where white people accuse non-white people of being racist.
Yeah. Oh, you're a racist. You're a race baiter. You're an Al Sharpton racist. That nonsense. Well, oh, you're talking about race, so therefore, you're just continuing it. Yeah. That's certainly, would have been, we can also have her on, again, because there's a plethora of things that, that should be, I would love to touch on with her. Certainly, at first she was giving that notion of, white people being ignorant and they just need to be educated and all this, but when, you really give the pushback, it's not that at all. It's just more deception. So, yeah. Yeah, and certainly one of the
I thought you really honed in on that pretty well, and exposing that for our listeners. I thought you honed in pretty well.
Certainly, and I just found it, a lot of the, she really, was trying to go for the, the ignorant thing, but, with the I wanted to ask her about the ITU department analogy, which I just found interesting. And also just the question of, again, what do white people, why is this for white people? What do white people need to know? They know this stuff. They know this stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
It's preaching to the choir. But yeah, I certainly think it was very important for her to admit to being a racist. I think a lot of non-white people are still, in just heavy denial about how ubiquitous the system is, how racism works. She did, say, oh, well, I don't want people taking it out of context. Well, what context are you afraid people are supposed to take it, to take it in? So I'm glad that she, that she certainly was candid enough to admit to being a racist, and I'm glad that she was pressed on an example of her practicing racism to really show the depth of the system. Let's see. Player hater, you're unmuted.
Thanks. Sorry, I relocated right next to a train station, which is convenient. For commuting and convenient for my rent being low, but can sometimes be problematic during broadcasts because they come every half hour.
It happens, It's also not convenient for, it's convenient for getting shot on the platform.
Stop.
That barks.
I live by a Caltrain station, not BART.
Well, lucky you.
Although I did drive by Fruitvale Station this week. Yeah.
Thoughts on the guest?
I thought Dr. DiAngelo was, relatively speaking, candid. Was open-minded to her possibly being incorrect about some things when you asked her some clarification. And I thought some of the sense that I got is that some of the stuff would be productive. Well, I don't know. Some of it's productive. Some of it I did find was constructive. But and it's it's perfectly fair for someone not to have answers. The specific things I was looking for. I wasn't able to find any help. But that's okay, right? No one's a magic genie. Yeah. I can't lie. I just fundamentally disagree with anybody who says that white people are ignorant about what's going on. I just don't understand how that's possible. Because usually when you're and correct me if I'm wrong, usually when you're ignorant about something, that leads to a loss of status or a loss of wealth or a loss of social position. Mm-hmm. Yet this quote-unquote ignorance is just leading to the exact opposite of all of those things.
I mean, if you use the example that she tried to use, so-called patriarchy, let's say, well, what is an act of male dominance? Rape, right? So
is it? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an act of male dominance over a female.
Or a male. Since half of people who are raped are males, but they don't mention that. But continue.
You mean that
it would be absurd. It would be absurd to hint that males are ignorant, about their physical dominance or whatever when they commit rapes. Like that is absurd. And I just thought of that analogy, but I think it's a decent analogy.
I think like the patriarchy she refers to is the social conversation that white men and white women are having about who's going to be in charge, and that doesn't really apply to us, I feel.
What are you talking about? We need to check our privilege. We're black males, and we know, and that there's black females being mistreated. So there is male patriarchy. What are you talking about?
Being mistreated how?
Oh, they're being raped and abused and left for white women and all of these and just mistreated.
Stop. Left for white women mistreatment.
Just think about any crime, though. Like, any crime that is committed ever. Like, when could you ever say that the person who committed the crime was ignorant of the crimes that they're committing? Like I'm hard-pressed. Like, unless you have, like, some sleepwalker or, like, I don't know. It's just really far-fetched to me. And
apparently you can raid the slave quarters blindfolded and come out with a treasure chest full of gold. Somehow, I mean, like, I at some level I understand what she's trying to say. Like the reluctance to like admitting what you're doing, but that's not ignorance. That's deception.
That could be a part of. That could be her saying that could be a part of her deception. Consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's deception, because like after she actually really started, talking about it, she's like, like the words that she wanted to tell us, she's like, come on, you know what you're doing. Well, not you know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Know what the deal is.
Yeah, but the problem is that she has published articles out there right now that non-white people might read and get a wrong impression on what
she's a professor. She's a professor.
Was a professor.
Oh, she was a professor, and she's still, pushing this stuff out here. She just hasn't, all of these, these articles are really becoming a new Tim Wise. I definitely want to ask her about Tim Wise and white people who claim to be anti-racist, really profiting off of racism. Putting
Tim Wise is an upstanding individual.
No, he is not.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is that other line of questioning where there is like this very deep sense of irony and misjustice that it's a lot easier to make a living doing this stuff if you're white versus black, even though the idea is to perpetrate equality.
What is it? And it's. I just think it's very, I'm glad she was, candid with us, but, and for the purposes of the program, to really deconstruct what she's trying to say. But, really when you have this this large article and it's talking about all of these, it's really giving, analogies to being the IT department and white people just not knowing, that much about computers. It's just putting the notion out there that white people are ignorant about what's going on, and that it just couldn't be further from the truth. It's really black people who, at least until they're adults, really, depending on their environments, really are are the most ignorant about this problem, about what goes on. People, and I wanted to ask her. She says that white people fundamentally hate hate black people, which I didn't get a chance to answer her question of how would I think about it, because I think maybe she was trying to get a shock or a gasp from us, but really it's not, it couldn't be anything. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I think if she says that, I wanted to ask her about interracial dating. So is it was it correct or for someone to date someone who fundamentally hates them, or is it and that's something I certainly wanted to ask her about, and also ask her then of course how interracial dating is promoted and things of that nature.
Isn't that really just getting to the end point of dating anyway? Where everybody hates the other person. Or the other. It's really just pushing the fast forward button. Please,
is that true?
No comment. I plead the fifth.
Oh God. Anyway, yeah, I just and I'm just glad also. Really glad that she got challenged on that patriarchy thing, because it's just such a white defense. It's deflective. It trivializes what the problem is, and it also gives it also a lot of non-white people hear that, and some black feminists hear that, or wannabe black feminists hear that, and certainly it muddles up the conversation that we should be having.
I kind of feel like just the fact that black feminists had to come up with their own term, just given the racism they had to deal with, trying to talk about their own particular issues with being women, should be one massive hint, right?
Yeah, and I think also just feels like, she glossed over it, the whole feminist movement thing, but she kind of just really admitted that the feminist movement was just to double the white household income, which, is, how I certainly see it, and that's certainly how the results have been, have been. And she just glossed over it shoulder shrug, when it's it's supposed to be one of the triumphs of, of the 20th century and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really a part of that deception.
Well, that's definitely a minority view. That's not a view that you hear a lot. That feminism basically served to widen the racial wealth gap. I haven't seen a lot of literature on that. And that's definitely something.
Oh, it's pretty obvious from the numbers.
Oh, it's obvious.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely obvious, but it's not talked about.
Yeah,
it's not talked about at all.
But it's huge, and it's huge, and it's monumental. It's monstrous. The impact, and it's the role of the white female, and how the white female practices racism, and it's very, very deceptive. I'm not saying that there aren't males who mistreat females, and there aren't, because there's a ton of that, and there's also tons and a lot more of males mistreating other males, and there's just a lot of mistreatment going on. However, there is no system with lynching photos, women lynching photos going around, and things of that nature. And I also had to of course, mention to her just white women make more than non-white men, and are the most employed group, even over white males. So it's just really the playing the victim, being able to use playing the victim on steroids. It's really just playing the victim to the extreme to really help navigate racism and white supremacy when the white male needs a hand.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I also see that with the so-called transgender white people. There's always something to cling on to victimhood, and I can't possibly be an oppressor because I'm in this group or I'm in that group. You're talking to a black male, really. Let's be real.
Yeah. Yeah, and transgenderism, that's certainly and that's that release, I just thought it was interesting too, which is related to how she said when she said, black male masculinity, and she just paused, and it was just, that like
the oxymoron.
Wait,
yeah, she was like,
we're allowed to be men now?
Exactly.
This is news.
Yeah, that's when I brought up that I have to damn near wear a dress to go and get paid as well as a white counterpart. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
As well as, you make as much as your white counterparts.
Yes.
I know I do.
Yes.
You said you do know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty well.
Well, you should.
Yep.
So yeah, I also background. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, just a little background noise on player hitter, but he'll straighten that out in a second.
So did you want me to read the letter from Tim and Sarah?
Oh, please. Yes, I want to hear this letter from Tim and Sarah. Please continue.
Okay, so first I need to give some context to. Hold on 1 second. Let me turn my Wi-Fi on. I need to give some context to how this conversation even started. So it's summertime, and in neighborhood time, crime typically begins to spike. When the heat turns up a little bit. So maybe about a week or two ago, like there was a shooting outside my house. The guy got caught. But so I'm on this neighborhood website, where they talk about useful things like yard sales and daycare and the crime in the neighborhood and this, that, and the third. So I basically couldn't take it anymore. Like, they were talking about crime in the neighborhood, and a lot of the white people on the forum were using a bunch of racially coded language. So that was one thing that got me. And the second thing that got me was that they'd rather use a racially coded language on a website and talk bad about black people, rather than just confronting the preteens and teenagers who are out there committing basically nuisance crimes like vandalism, etc., etc. Like, it would be like posts like, "Oh yeah, I saw this black male doing this. He looked like he was about 12, and yeah, I saw him doing this." And then people would reply, "Oh, well, did you call the police?" Well, how about fucking saying something to him? Like it's so fucking cowardly. Like, I don't understand why whites are such cowards sometimes when it comes like this. Like, you dominate black people, but yet you don't want to say something to somebody who's committing vandalism. You'd rather go online and talk bad about black people, all black people. So it really pissed me off. So I basically wrote a post saying that, if you see something, say something, because I sure do. In the neighborhood, when they're teenagers doing things that are incorrect. I mean, there's no problem with being, polite but firm and saying, "Yo, you really shouldn't be doing that," this, that, and the third. And I said, but, you'd rather come on here and talk about welfare when 85% of the homes in this neighborhood are owner-occupied. You'd rather talk about welfare and one person like explicitly said something about black males. This is why people don't trust black males. And then the same person that said something about welfare also said that something about mob rule after the So anyway, this is the person who ended up sending me the message. So Tim and Sarah sent me an email. I'm not sure which one sent it, Tim or Sarah, but let me read this. Subject, mob rule. Derek, I say that you, sir, are an evil racist. You imply that recent police action in Baltimore City constitutes mob rule. Well, the Baltimore City Police Department is over half the primary officers in the Freddie Gray case are black. Not true. And the officers report to a black chief of police who reports to a black mayor. So you're saying that, so if you are saying that the group is engaged in mob rule, then you are racist. Now, don't for a minute deny you're anything but an evil racist, because that's just a whole lot of white-splaining. And by the way, I have you on record committing 47 microaggressions since breakfast this morning. Now, you are hereby ordered to sit in the corner for 1 hour so you can think about how you can more effectively check your privilege. Full forgiveness may be granted by you paying a 90% income tax rate for the rest of your life, which shall be deposited directly in the bank account of Al Sharpton. And that is the message.
Wow, Al Sharpton? You evil racist?
You know why people had to throw Al Sharpton in there somewhere.
Wow, and what was your response?
I did respond. I said, so here's my reply. I did not get a reply. I said, I'm surprised you didn't find some way to include Eric Holder as well. That is common Fox, faux, FAUX news rhetoric. Because he has to have something to do with kids in North Baltimore throwing rocks at cars. Am I right? I'm not sure how you raised, but falsely detaining somebody and being the judge, jury, and executioner is the very definition of a mob. Not sure how a black police commissioner, the same police boss from the Oscar Grant fiasco, I boss in quotes, makes the fact that a man killed by 3 white cops who illegally detained him and criminal behavior and negligence by the other 2 black cops more palatable. I'm not certain how to reply to the rest of your ranting regurgitation of Tea Party talking points. What was the point of you sending me this message again? Did you want me to think that you couldn't possibly be racist? And that was my reply, with 2 questions at the end, and I never got a response.
No response? How shocking. You know, of course, this is a common thing, and a lot of people just have had this experience. We've had Devin on, we've had Mr. E on, and others. These white people, practice racism on social media, and just certainly, want to antagonize the issue and definitely cling to the tried and true cliches. You're race baiting, Al Sharpton. That's just so cliche. It's so cliche. It wasn't even creative. And that, of course, response was appropriate, and I'm not shocked that there wasn't a further response from those suspected racists.
Suspected.
Suspected. High levels of suspicion.
So that made my week last week. I actually chuckled as I replied to the email. And I didn't expect a response back, but I would have liked one. And I did not get it. So.
Well, you got to keep us posted. You got to keep us posted.
But you know what? The white, I don't know if they're white people, but the people in the neighborhood forum are talking about a block party. Maybe I can go and meet him and Sarah at this party.
Just make sure no cops
I would like to talk to Tim and Sarah.
Please do, and if you could just get them on a program. That would be ideal, but I don't know if you can arrange that.
I will try. I really don't feel like going to that party. I was kind of in jest saying that Tim and Sarah will be there. But maybe I will message them again and ask them if they would like to have a courteous dialogue in in a public space. See if they're down. But I know typically white people with I don't know, like that kind of mainstream white racism, they don't really like coming on. They don't really like coming and hanging out. You more get like the cow hunts that like to come and talk out, and talk. Or you'll get the so-called liberal white racists that'll come on and talk.
Miss DiAngelo?
Yeah, like that.
Miss DiAngelo, who also, by the way, full disclosure, also declined going on the cows with Mr. Gus T. Renegade. And said that she was fatigued from all the attention that she was getting, from her last report. I just find that very interesting. Both in Seattle.
And I find that a little. That means we might have to step our game up because she thought we were featherweights or something.
Giving it to the softball questions, the softballs. Yeah. Certainly a interesting dialogue with that. I'm certainly just just another example of, in my opinion, of the ubiquitousness of racism, how white people are not ignorant. And how, yes, you heard it from the racist's own mouth. White people fundamentally hate black people. She also didn't say non-white people. Let's get that straight. She said black people, and we can't forget that.
Yep, definitely. And I did like the analogy that she had with, and I've heard this several times before with. Animals, where people generally don't take joy in slaughtering animals, whether you're strangling a chicken to put on a dinner plate, or whipping your horse to make them go faster so you can win you money, or whatever. People don't generally take pleasure. People usually aren't sadistic when it comes to dealing with animals. So. If white people think black people are animals, or if they don't, like, what is the difference? What is the discrepancy in treatment? And then it's an interesting question.
Yes, it is. Certainly. Let's see. Yes, I have a black cat, and she's not. She's not happy about racism either. Yes, if anybody would like, certainly if anyone would like to call in and put their hand up to join the dialogue, the number is 917-889-2965. That is 917-889-2965 to join the dialogue. Yes. Also, I guess since our last program, there's been, of course, always developing new developments. I believe our last program we were waiting to hear. It was live from Baltimore. We were waiting to hear the indictments, and subsequently, these officers were charged. I just briefly want to get your take on especially from D-Train and from Player Hater as well. Just from what are your idea, or what's your reaction to the charges for the Baltimore police officers that are responsible for the death of Freddie Gray?
Okay, so first off, I gotta say, you were talking about Mayor Rollins Blake, and you like her finance that needs better. Prosecutor Mosby is bad herself. With that said, I think she mostly did her job. What was interesting to me is that the black male who drove the van got the most serious charge. And then I felt like the other two police officers, the two black ones, the black female, I'm kind of stunned that she even got charged at all, seeing as she came in on the end of it and didn't really know what was going on. And then the black male, I wasn't really sure of what his involvement was either. It was interesting that the driver got second-degree murder, but the officers that beat and detained Mr. Gray got nothing. Well, not nothing, but they got second-degree assault. Also, it seems that the false imprisonment charge was dropped, even though the attorney said that the arrest was illegal in the first place. So that was interesting. I don't have the feeling that these charges are trumped up or made up or to placate anybody. And I don't feel like the trial is going to be just kind of a show, like i.e. Trayvon Martin. So, like I said, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. Where you got your, the black male who has the most serious charges. Even though I definitely think that some sort of homicide charge was in order for him, but the three white males who were involved in this did not receive a homicide charge. So that's a little troubling to me.
Gotcha. Player hater?
I don't know. I'd have to actually see convictions before I could really weigh in. I'm glad. Well, I don't know. I'm glad some people are getting charged, but it's unclear to me whether, the severity of punishment is being handed down to the right people. But that being said, I'm not the prosecutor. She may be privy to details that I'm not. So it's hard to say. It's more than what Eric Garner got. It's more than what Michael Brown got. But my suspicion is that, ultimately, they'll be let off. So, I don't know. It takes a very special type of inhumanity to ignore someone who's begging for their life and begging for medical attention.
Yep.
And even these charges don't really seem harsh enough.
Yep.
So,
if you guys remember the Felicia Barnes situation in Baltimore, the guy, what was that?
Remind me?
The teenage girl from North Carolina who went missing, found in the Susquehanna River. Sad story. I'm just kind of talking about juries in Baltimore. And like I said, I don't know if this is going to turn out similarly, but they had a mostly black jury there, and they convicted the guy who was accused of murdering her, even though, strangely enough, even though they didn't really have any evidence to convict him. He's been convicted 3 times, and I think he's out on bail again, waiting for another appeal. So,
how can you be out on bail while you're waiting appeal for something you got convicted of? That doesn't make sense.
They threw out his charges twice.
Oh.
Yeah, and they retried it. Yeah. So, but what a lot of people were saying about the trial, and actually a friend of mine actually got selected the first time around that trial came out. But what they were saying is, while it was tragic, they didn't really have the evidence to convict him. Now, of course, that was a different prosecutor. So, I hope there's no funny business this time around. But that kind of leaves me not very hopeful. But then at the same time, it seems unpredictable what's going to happen in terms of punishment for these 6 individuals.
Yeah. on top of that, there's the gentleman who was falsely imprisoned for 3 years, who recently committed suicide. That was a real sad one.
Yeah, I think that's it was just I was speaking with a player here about it earlier. What was his name again?
Give me a second. Sorry, sadly enough, I don't know off the top of my head. Khalif Browder.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was accused of stealing a book bag. They threw him in jail. He, was black and poor and didn't really have any legal team. They let him sit there for 3 years. And then when he came out, he just wasn't the same.
Now, would you compare this to a slave suicide?
I would say this is exactly a slave suicide. Right? I mean, like, people don't... I mean, the damage to... it's really hard to actually put into, like, words and numbers the amount of psychological damage and trauma that experiences like this do to people. Like, this is... Sorry. It's hard to talk about.
Very true. It's the most damaging, dominating, system on the planet right now, and it's disgusting.
I have another current event. Most people might not think this is directly related to white supremacy, but I do. Have you seen, like, the recent short stories, kind of just a recent trend that's come out against people disciplining their child, and how normally the people who are displayed in these kind of cases that, may have went a little too far are black people. And it's opened up, like, these conversations on how black people or non-white people discipline their child so backwards, ignorant, and have their roots in slavery, and et cetera, et cetera. And do you think that this is, do you guys think this is kind of a ploy, just to, show how, how they're always associating black people with something negative, just to show how dumb and ignorant black, they can't even raise their children right. And then you couple that with kind of the hypocrisy of, number one, that people are always complaining about unruly and undisciplined black children. So, like, those two things can't go together. And then number two, the Mom of the Year thing that happened during the Baltimore riots, where people were praising a woman for publicly humiliating and beating her child on, and it got recorded, but it happened in public.
Absolutely, I absolutely see that correlation. I do think that if it's a lot of, especially a lot of these, cable networks, cable networks news shows have a lot of white experts talking about black discipline and what's right and what's wrong, and of course, that's contrasted with not even a couple months ago, the Mother of the Year, for smacking up her son in public. Now, I do think a conversation does need to be had within black people need to have with each other about certainly about putting social shaming on Facebook and things of that nature. I think that conversation is valid for black people to have with each other. However, the way that white people are having this conversation, and it's always reverting back to, oh, it's because the poverty, the father's not in the home and the mom's doing something. I think that they go on the cliched, black people can't even raise their kids right. It's just like how they were in slavery. They couldn't even raise their own kids, and we sold them and all. That's really how white people, are presenting that. And, yeah, I agree, totally. And it's a lot of hypocrisy. And as for the conversation of, disciplining children and all that, it's a conversation that needs to be had, but needs to be had, for black people and to decide what's the best, most codified way to handle certain situations.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other thing, I mean, this just goes with a kind of a whole societal thing that I see these days where, where the kids are raised to be kind of entitled, oh, boy, everybody gets a trophy. And so now, I don't know if you guys have seen this, there's this new thing, and I'm associating this with black people too, even though the face of this in the news is white. There was this couple in Maryland, and, they kind of let their kids walk to the park. It was like 9 or 10 blocks away. And they were like, I think 10 or 11 and 8. And they, the people will call the police on them. And anyway, they have a term for this, and it's called so-called free-range parenting. And I wondered, I guess, like, just based on the fact that, there are a lot of black single moms that have to go to work. There are a lot of black families that have to go to work. And I can even relate a story from the 90s for me, where, both of my parents would be at work, and I would walk home by myself, and, kind of let myself in the house. And this was when I was in 3rd or 4th grade. Anyway, the white woman who lived maybe 2-3 doors down from me, instead of checking on me to call, coming to knock on the door to see if I was okay, she called Child Protective Services on my mother.
What?
Yes. Because I would let myself in the house and, just kind of chill there until my mom got home. But anyway, there seems to be now an elevated push. They even call it, they have like a term for it, free-range parenting, where I guess the media or, powers that be don't want your children to assume any responsibility for anything. They just want people to be helicopter parents. And there was also like a separate case with this, where I think a girl's mother worked at McDonald's or something. She was like 11 years old. She like let her go and play at the playground, like at the end of her shift, and then she got arrested for it or something. And I did, like, what do you guys think about how this whole new mentality on parenting, and whether it helps or hurts black children, and just kind of your thoughts on it.
Player hater?
Yeah, that's I don't know, just like the very notion that black children are less well-behaved, less obedient, need more discipline, like, even that very, like, notion I would challenge. Like, at least in my experience, and maybe it's just, like, from where I grew up, and people I've been around, but white, non-black kids do, like, the same stuff at, like, the same or worse rates,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing that really comes to mind, at least for me, is, like, drug use, right?
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I would just say, like, even like that very notion. I think I would actually challenge, and I'd want somebody to show me some, like, hard data saying that, like, our kids are quantitatively poor behaved. But yeah, I think, like, it's also I kind of feel like you should have some leeway as far as, like, how you want to parent And if you want to use corporal punishment, you know, you can. I don't necessarily think that should be like criminal behavior either.
What do you think about the so-called free-range parenting, where I guess parents give their children elevated levels of responsibility? Do you think that's harmful, helpful?
Oh, I think it's a good way to end up on an SC episode. Yeah.
I kind of agree. I have to agree, especially now. And was Felicia Barnes, was she a product of free range parenting? Things like that. I'm not saying it was, that's what happened, but we're in a war zone, and the reins need to be certainly be tightened, and but of course it's an individual thing. It really you need to go on the individual personality of the kid too, because people, there's I personally don't think there's a generic blanket rule. I think got to measure the kids maturity level and things of that nature, but also in terms of just the criticism right now, the conversations that are being had about parenting. It's just always coming back to, you don't hear a lot of conversations about white parenting, and these fucking kids are off the hook. Like, about what they're doing, shooting up school, and then people are shooting up schools and, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you know how many, every month there's a white riot, every school year there's a riot every month on white campuses that's downplayed, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, and I just think it's a very, very good and valid point. The player hitter brought up about, is it at it's also presented, and I think that also is connected to it. The reason why it's spoken about so much about black parenting and all that, it also suggests that black children somehow need more discipline, or need to be, or just unruly. It promotes that suggestion, more so than white children. And it's always a discussion about black children. Like, it's, when you hear these discussions, it's about, the black community this, and, black, but they're not talking about, they're really not talking about children. You're not talking about the treatment of, how children are, and their teachers molesting them every month and all that kind of stuff. Their white teacher, by the way, molesting them every month. No one's talking about, how children are treated, by white people. It's all about, how, black people are treating their children, where you can see, how white parenting is, and, how a lot of, ways that white people are, mistreating their children. It's just very racist.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the spin on all of this is, just ugh. And like I said, everybody has different opinions on how people should parent and stuff like that, and that's not really, the point, that I was trying to make. The point was more about, media spin, especially in the wake of, Mom of the Year and all of that. And, just kind of exposing white people and, their media is hypocrites. They're just big hypocrites,
And plus, if you want to add in, the push for abortion and the, Planned Parenthood in every ghetto in the United States, and really just heavily in black neighborhoods, and combining that with black people can't even, they can't, raise their kids, and it's really, they'll focus on black, females, she's a single parent, and all that kind of stuff. It's, there's a lot of, all of that is connected, connected to, abortion rates, and, but, the devaluing of black children in general by white people.
Yeah. See, another current event. This white police officer putting his knee in the back of a 14-year-old black female in a bikini. It was kind of
party.
What was that?
Oh, sorry. Was that? hold on. There was just some background noise for Player Hater. But yeah, this you're talking about the pool party?
Yes, the pool party. It broke my heart. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but just like, this this is barely a teenager, and you roughhousing her like that. When you know that she's no type of threat at all. And then they had a video about how, a 19-year-old female who was at the party, a 19-year-old black female, she said that white people started this whole altercation. I think it's really cowardly. This is the same thing the white people did in Baltimore during the Saturday Freddie Gray protest. They go and start some shit, and then they call the police like fucking bitches, and then sit back and enjoy the show.
Did you see the whole video of that?
I saw. I mean, it was like a 7-minute video. I think I saw the first 4 minutes, and. Yeah, I think I saw it to the point where he took out the gun.
Yeah, took the gun out, chased the kids down, threw the black female down, threw down several black males. Somebody did a barrel roll. It was chaos, and it was extreme. And he was like, get your asses down, and which is very, very racist. But actually, what they don't talk about is at the beginning of that video, or there's a separate video where they show what the whole incident was, and it was black people. It was two females fighting, I believe, and one was black and one was white, and they were fighting each other. And like you said, it was white people.
There was an adult. Yeah, there were two adults fighting. I think one was a white female who was in her 30s. And the other one was a black female, and they interviewed this black female, and that's why it was a black female who was about 19 years old. So there were two adults fighting, and that's what started the whole thing. But the black female said that the white person started the altercation. She said that she started talking about, well, you need to go back to your Section 8 house, and she's like, wait, I live in this neighborhood. The white person kept antagonizing more, and eventually it led to blows.
I believe one of the police reports said that there were complaints of people not being in their rightful neighborhood. Like, that was literally what it said in the police report, that the reports were that people were in a neighborhood that they didn't belong. And I read that verbatim, and I was like, it's very sundown townish. Like, they're, a group of, probably just, they invited a bunch of their black friends, and, they're having this party, and people, white people are, getting angry just at the visual sight of non-white people because of the threat that is imposed, subconsciously. That's it's just another incident. It's the summer, and it's just kicking off. And a lot of people talk about crime rises during the summer. Why are black people so, rowdy during the summer? Why are white people so rowdy during the summer? White people turn up the racism just a little bit during the summer. It's not over, and it starts in April. And
it starts in April, like Tariq Nasheed said.
Well, just like it's just been, it's just true. It starts in April, and as Gus said, by the way, that's where he got it from. Just got to give people their credit. But anyway, it's just it's something that it's just unexplained. It might be the heat, who knows? But it just drives them mad, and it's certainly it's been documented. The Red Summer, and just all of the every summer has the riots, and everybody talks about that, and it's just not over. And this video is just, hey, it's white people doing what they do, and it's going to continue.
I think in other news, the guy, the racist who shot Walter Scott dead, he was indicted. So I'm actually looking for similarities between that case and the Jonathan Ferrell case, because in the Jonathan Ferrell case, the grand jury didn't indict the guy, then they indicted him, and now they're just pushing his trial back and pushing his trial back and pushing his trial back, forever and ever and ever, while this guy is not in jail or or anything. So I'm looking for, since these are neighboring states, I'm kind of looking for like a similar pattern with this guy.
Now, have you found anything, or you're still seeing how it plays out?
Yeah, I'm seeing how it plays out. I think he just got indicted yesterday. But, I mean, I'm sure this is one of the things I've been saying lately, for football enthusiasts, like especially if you played on high school. White people have that wing tee offense where they have like 4 plays, but all of them work extremely well. Like I see the same thing over and over and over and over.
Yes, absolutely. Player Hater just actually sent me an article on this year women and girls rule the big screen, and it just has a picture of all. It has about 5 white females. It's from a an NPR film. Well, no, it's from a film, Pitch Perfect 2, which is directed by women too. So, yeah, it's just all of this, the patriarchy, and there's the feminist push. It's just very much racist woman flexing her muscle and really making her dominant, and the image of the ideal for people to be to. You have to be a white female, making black males need to strive to be a white female just to make it. Apparently, just like you said, D-Train, you have to put on a skirt just to make it into the pay bracket of a white counterpart.
Like Damon Wayans?
Yes. And he'll admit it. Damon Wayans, he was definitely had a huge influence on Bamboozled, so he knows exactly what the deal is.
Right. Speaking of patterns in the Carolinas, if you remember Officer Sean Gruber, the racist who shot LeVar Jones, fortunately LeVar Jones survived and got retribution or compensation for his tragedy.
How much did he get?
Not that much. I think it was like $800,000 or $900,000.
Would you let someone open fire point blank on you for $800,000?
I don't. Probably not.
Fingers crossed they don't hit your aorta.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, like I said, wing T offense, because Mr. Sean Gruber's trial date, his verdict date was extended. Same thing with Randall Carrick in Charleston, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina. And this guy, what was his name? I don't even know this racist name in North Charleston, South Carolina. But I suspect the same thing's gonna happen there. Just push it back until it's out of people's minds, and then you can get your all-white jury of your peers to, say you're innocent. And then you're free to go, and nobody remembers anything about the incident. So that's what they try to do with Michael Dunn in Florida, too.
Yes, that's true. Oh, and by the way, for the pool party, no surprise, McKinney Pool Party posted signs thanking officers for brutal treatment of young black teenagers. And it had a bunch of signs saying thank you, thanking the cops for beating up the teens, so, yeah.
Because we were too fucking cowards to do it ourselves. White people's cowardice sometimes just, it's just like the same thing I was talking about in the neighborhood for. Oh, well, did you go to the police? Like, it's
thank you for keeping us safe. That's, what all of these pictures say. So, yeah. That's how it goes. It's very similar just to the cops who, get all of these GoFundMe and, Kickstarter campaigns after they kill a black person. That's exactly, it's pretty similar to that.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Trying to think of what else is current.
There's tons of stuff. There's, it's a full court press of stuff. I'm certainly, especially after last week, just exhausted of, the Bruce Jenner stuff that's coming out, and that's certainly a part of racism, white supremacy, deeply connected, especially since almost every single time there's a special or they're talking about it, they show that picture of Laverne Cox calling him the pioneer, for going out and, being such a success on Orange Is the New Black, which is a very, very racist program. It's just it's very racist and pretty ridiculous and lunacy. It's just this is a woman, and it's just and just for that being the spotlight while we're still getting our vertebrae broken and stomped on and raped and beat down, we have to also look at this anti-sexual behavior on part of a certain portion of white people. And also thing. It's making but it's also just the fact that white people are making black people the face. Even with Bruce Jenner coming out, they still have to revert to, a black person. Look at these transgender people and making making black people the face of the quote unquote transgender movement, which is an act of racism and an act of attack on gender roles in the black community. With feminizing black males and masculinizing black females, and this is directly related to that.
Yeah, I see it. The shocking thing for me is, well, not really shocking, but is that that black people are not only the face of the whole LGBTQ thing, but they're also the face of these rabid homophobes. Look at these black people, they're backwards, and look at these black people, they're homosexuals. But then, in the next breath, look at these black people, they're rabid anti-homosexuals. They're bigots. See what these black people do when since they don't have any power in the race. In the race game, then they practice bigotry against homosexuals. Like they just love to kind of associate black people with homosexuality or the transgender thing, whether in a so-called negative or positive light. So that's the interesting thing for me. Hello?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm just looking at quite a few disturbing articles. That's it.
Yeah. Another thing, another trend that I'm starting to see is that apparently everybody is starting to be labeled an a bigot against so-called LGBTQRS people. Yeah. Yeah. Because I had posted something about Bruce Jenner, I just don't get it.
What did you post? What did you post?
I posted that I thought it was ridiculous that he got this ESPN Courage Award when there was a person. I think there were 3 people who were battling cancer when they were when they were being college and professional athletes. I thought it was ridiculous. Somebody had just, they had commented that, that I seemed like I was being bigoted and this, that, and the third. And I said, it doesn't really have anything to do with that.
Was this a white person?
It was a white person. And he directly, and this was a direct practice of racism, because he said, as much as you care about, issues between whites and non-whites, why would you say something like this? And I was just like, like I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't see how going and dressing up like a woman is courageous. And that's that's basically just what I said. You start going by a different name, and I said, I basically said if I said I was Joan of Arc, people be wanting to lock me up in a mental institution. But everybody is, it's not even a neutral thing. Everybody's celebrating this Christian thing, and I just don't get it. I don't have any hatred towards the guy. I don't know the guy from Adam, or I don't know. I don't get it. But when you express those views, like, I'm a little skeptical. Like how is this constructive? I don't really get it. I don't really get how you can be a different sex than the sex assigned to you at birth. Then you get labeled all these nasty terms. I don't know. It was just really an eye-opener for me because you'll get labeled like these terms just for, having questions or confusion around this whole thing. But white people won't get labeled as racist for saying blatantly racist things. So.
This is true. It's just the oversaturation of it. It's just just the high levels of oversaturation of it when it's, and making this a huge issue. The LGBT, like when this huge issue when, the main issue is, and, always has been, racism, white supremacy.
Actually, here's a question. Can patriarchy exist if you get to choose your own gender?
You think patriarchy exist if you have to choose what?
No, it was, no. Does patriarchy exist if you can choose your own gender? No.
What's interesting is there was actually a feminist who actually came out with an article saying that feminists are going to be the people that dismantle this whole transgender thing because of that exact question.
Sorry, do you mind repeating that, D-Train?
I saw an article where a feminist was saying that feminists were going to be the ones who dismantled the whole transgender thing because of that exact question that Blair had just asked.
Let me see.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like completely inconsistent.
I've seen, absolutely. I just we read it, there was an article that it just really destroys the whole concept of, feminism and patriarchy, when people are choosing their genders, and things of that nature. So it's, they're really just, these are two conflicting ideologies, and, they're still, pushing, working together to practice racism, but really, they're two conflicting ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's quite obvious this white person has a mental illness, and it's being celebrated, and it's being encouraged for him to just throw up his hands and really just embrace, his problem, which he even says is a problem. He says, "I'm confused." He says, "I don't know." He says, "I'm confused about my gender." He's not saying, "Oh, I know." He knows he's fucked up.
Don't you mean her problem?
You cannot throw a rag mop over your head and call yourself a woman. It just doesn't work like that.
Well, technically that's not true.
It is, because, that's not a woman.
Well, that's not what society says anymore.
Not what white people say anymore. And, also, that's also a very good, That's also a very good question, because surveys, it's also interesting to seeing how, just it's tangential, but how the internet views things versus how people at large are viewing things, and there's just a lot of sometimes there's a gap, and then sometimes there's a silent majority, where this is certainly not acceptable to all white, even to all racists out there. Even there are some that it's just not flying. But they know it's just known that like D-Train was saying, if you even say something remotely negative, or remotely giving pushback or counter to praising it and wanting to have your anus prolapse by what's going on, then you're a bigot.
Yep, it's definitely the trend that I've noticed. I don't know. It's just not right. Especially for something as confusing as this. I'm like on one of these forums on Facebook where they, if I hear the word intersectionality like one more time, I'm gonna shoot myself in the head. But like I'm on one of these forums and they talk about white supremacy, and basically they were like, like a black male posted something, and actually his first sentence was a good point before he went into kind of like non-constructive name calling, but it was about Bruce Jenner. He was like, y'all talk all this shit about, black men sagging their pants. But you have this man who goes and dresses in a dress, and everybody wants to praise him. He actually got banned from the forum for posting that. I don't think it was for the first sentence, but what he said after that, I guess, you know how people get emotional when they see things, and they don't really look at what made sense out of what that person said. So I was kind of like, I do kind of feel some type of way that you want to criticize how black people dress, but then you have this white male who goes and puts a dress on, and everybody's happy for it. And it's blatant hypocrisy.
So, yeah, it's just pretty. It just reminds me of them calling you a bigot. Just also reminds me of you being called an evil racist. It's just, of course, especially being a black male, like it's just very, very, very racist.
But on this forum, I kind of expressed my confusion about what I should call Bruce Jenner now.
Really?
Yeah, I was like,
what are you confused? Wait, D-Train, what are you confused about?
I'm just confused. He said his name was Caitlin, but as far as I know, he's a male, and his name is Bruce. So I was just, I was like, I don't know what to call him. And a lot of people attack me for it. Like, you should call him Caitlin. That's what he said in the magazine. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, is all these black people like jump into this white man's defense? I'm just like, whoa. Like this is crazy. Like,
and these are mostly black people?
Yeah, these are mostly black people in this group. So I'm just like, and there's like constructive tidbits in there, which why I stay in there, but I don't know, man.
So, D-Train, what have you decided, or what are you going to call Bruce / Caitlyn Jenner?
I think I'm gonna. I don't know. I'm just gonna call him Jenner. That'll solve the existential crisis I'm having right now.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, as far as I know, his name is Bruce Jenner, and he's dressed in a dress. But then I know that Mr. Polo also says that you should call people what they want to be called. So I'm a little conflicted there, and I'm definitely very confused on how somebody who's born a male can all of a sudden become female. That is very confusing. Very confusing.
It's very simple. You get gender reassignment surgery, you get your Adam's apple shaved down, you get a pair of breasts, and you get your genitalia reassigned, and voila.
But I don't even think he's had that yet. So, that makes it more confusing because I don't think he's gotten anything chopped off. So, very confusing.
What happens to that Y chromosome?
Nothing. Nothing happens to the Y chromosome.
I was just asking.
Also, you don't grow a uterus either, apparently. So.
You know they're working on it. You know why people are working on it.
I doubt it. I doubt it even myself.
By the way, D-Train, I just want to put it out there. Every year, the UK has 5,000 white females born without a womb.
What? In the UK?
Yep.
Interesting. That's like and that kind of goes like with the Wellsing thing. Cause especially because the UK is like one of those epicenters of white supremacy. And then you got this white genetic survival thing basically coming up where you have women being born without a functional uterus. So that's interesting.
Well, yeah, and there's always there was an article a couple of months back. Migrants change the UK forever. White Britons will be in the minority by 2066. In the same predictions white people have over here. But I'm sure they're working on making sure that doesn't happen.
Well, like I said, it depends over there because they don't have white people also migrating to the country. Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that demographic. But I know they do count like Eastern... Don't they count like Eastern Europeans as like a different race in the UK?
It depends which ones. The white ones are white, and the non-white ones certainly are not.
Yeah, like they have weird demographic statistics over there. I know they count they'll have white British, white Irish, and then they'll have I don't know if it's other or white other, which is supposed to be like Eastern Europeans, and then they'll have Asian, and Asian there doesn't mean Chinese or Japanese. It means Indian or Pakistani or Iranian. Just different definitions of everything. So.
Let's see. Player hater, would you like to talk about the governor of Kansas?
Oh yeah, that article. Yeah, so he's apparently on a power trip, and he's basically threatening that if judges continue to rule against laws that he favors, he'll just defund the judiciary. Yeah. Gotta love how conservatives love that separation of power.
Yeah, I don't know how checks and balances work. I don't know how checks and balances work in Kansas, but
apparently they don't.
At least not well, huh?
Yeah.
Speaking of Kansas, did you hear about the Kansas? He was a councilman in some small town in Kansas, and he almost ran into a black female at a traffic light, and he told her to go back to Baltimore, you nigger, this, that, and third. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
No.
Yeah. Hold on. I will get the guy's name because I think the name should be public.
Go back to Baltimore, you nigger.
Let's see. Go back to. I don't even know whether the girl is actually from Baltimore, which makes it all the more racist.
Of course. One of those Baltimore niggers.
and I can see if she lived in Delaware. Like she lived halfway across the country. It's just too much. Kansas is literally, 1,500, 2,000 miles away from Baltimore. There it is. Go back to Baltimore. Road raging Kansas councilman. And it's loading.
But after he said that, I'm sure he said that he's not racist. He was just mad.
He just had road rage.
Well, he's racially illiterate, guys. So maybe he just needs to get her book, which is $45 used, and read about it, and he'll feel better. He'll be able to sleep at night.
Well, let's be honest.
You can get it from the library free, and she still got paid for that. So there you go. Go back to Baltimore. Road raging Kansas councilman allegedly calls teen black nigger bitch over traffic mishap. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations has opened an investigation into Edwardsville City Councilman Chuck Stites. Chuck Stites is his name, who has been accused of shouting racial slurs at a teenage girl during a road rage incident. Callie Chapman told the news station that she was preparing to take a right turn on May the 3rd when she noticed a black Lincoln with its turn signal on, but the Lincoln continued to go straight, causing an almost collision. He had a signal on like he was going to turn right where I was, so I proceeded to take my right, and we almost collided because he continued to go straight, Chapman recalls. The teen said she tried to apologize, but the driver of her car insulted her with sexist and racial slurs. Not racist slurs. That's interesting. Sexist and racial slurs, not sexist and racist slurs. Interesting. He was saying things like, go back to Baltimore. Then he called me a black nigger bitch, Chapman said. A Bonner Springs police report was eventually turned over to the KBI, which said it cannot comment on ongoing investigations. Chapman told the news station this week that Stites owed her an apology and that he should step down. In a statement to the news station, Stites called the incident a misunderstanding. He was ignorant, apparently, but refused to say whether the charges were true. There's an ongoing investigation. It's a misunderstanding. There's a lot more to the story than what is being told, and I think it would probably be inappropriate for me to comment much more until the investigation is complete. I'm okay with somebody voicing their opinion, he added. That's their right, and it doesn't bother me at all. I have no intentions of stepping down. And that is the article. Again, Chuck Stites is his name. Chuck Stites. Edwardsville, Kansas.
It's just, and it even just reminds me of the McKinney incident. Just you black fucker, go back to your Section 8 housing. It's just the pattern.
Well, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. Go back to Baltimore, even though Baltimore is 2,000 miles away. You probably have never even been there, much less lived there.
By the way, just want another related news. There's also a new app called Mixi, which is an app specifically designed for interracial dating.
Oh, Jesus.
Have you heard of Thrinder?
What is it?
Thrinder?
Nope.
It's like Tinder except for threesomes.
Okay. Better than Grindr? For gay sex?
Ew. Oh, sorry. That probably could be interpreted as bigoted. But, yeah.
Stop it. D-Chain, stop being such a bigot. God.
Oh, man.
But yes, it's called Mixty, and it's a app specifically designed for interracial dating, so you can all indulge in your cravings.
How's that spelled?
Yeah, advertising this for this show.
That's M. You have to find it yourself.
Stop it. You can't advertise that on here.
But yes, but just remember that if you're a non-white person and you download Mixi, that the person, that you could end up, having a hot night of sex with fundamentally hates you. So, yeah, I'm sure that's a turn on.
I think you left out the most important thing, which is the spelling.
Oh, and also, did any of you guys see the murderers who escaped from prison in New York, and the note that they left?
This isn't real. I didn't see the note. What did they say?
The note is a Post-it note that says "Have a nice day," and it's a smiley face with buck teeth and a Chinese hat.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
With with two eye slits. So yes, it is a racist buck-tooth Asian, on yellow paper left by the murderers, the two white murderers who had power tools, and just waltzed right out of fucking prison.
Man, I gotta stop saying I can't believe it. I mean, that is astounding.
It's like the white slave, just taking off the chain and just, walking away. What are you talking about? So, yeah, it's just, it's not just against black people that, it's also white versus non-white, but, it goes on the color gradient. And speaking of that, of racism towards,
did they leave the bag that you get from the Chinese food restaurants too, with the smiley face that says "Thank you"?
Stop it. But actually, recently I just found out that they tried to really just pull the "I'm Turning Japanese" official music video from the internet. Like it's off of the Vapors Vivo. It's off of their official website. This link is no longer available, and there's just like some real one obscure website has it. That was posted years ago, but every single other one is missing mysteriously. And this was like a #1 hit. For a long time. I'm Turning Japanese, which is about masturbation and squinting your eyes and just racist. So in the video, it's just extremely racist and it's very sexual with it's just very 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 racist, and people they're shaking up their eyes and dancing around with samurai swords.
Is there sexual suggestiveness between white males and Asian females in this video?
Absolutely, yes. Holding the samurai sword, pointing in her face like it's a bukkake video with all the band members. And I'm like, well, no wonder they're like pulling their eyes and chinking it up. So yeah, this is a #1 hit. So
when's the offense, man? When's the offense? What is this?
Yeah. Did any of you see the interview with Antoine Dodson? Recent ones where he explained about his take on homosexuality and how it's a choice.
No, I have not. You said he became like a Hebrew Israelite or something like that.
Well, according to him, According to him, he never became a Hebrew Israelite. He was always one from the beginning.
Interesting.
Yes, but apparently, he was explaining just straight, contrary to popular belief, just saying that it was a choice. Mentioned that he was raped at 11 years old. on in a back alley next to some dumpsters. And he also mentioned that, growing up with an all-female household, he was taking up feminine tendencies that still to this day it's hard for him to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, he just came up with he had a very good point where he said that when he announced that he was no longer going to be gay and that he was, getting a wife and going to have a child and everything, he got so much backlash from the gay community saying that, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about, you're always going to be gay, blah, 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 really a lot of backlash. But, but when Bruce Jenner comes out and says, oh, well, now I want to be a woman and change this, he's getting all of this praise. And I think that's, certainly a very valid point that he made, that, he's a black male and he's talking about being straight and starting a black family and having black children, versus a white male talking about becoming a woman and changing their entire gender, and just the contrast of the response is just obviously racist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The hypocrisy. I mean, like I said, anybody who kind of throws away their biases, has to, just the logic of the whole thing.
Well, it's true. It's true. Oh,
you can't unbecome gay, but you can live as a man for 65 years. An Olympic athlete.
Oh yes, wasn't he
and have 6 children?
The greatest athlete on the world? Wasn't he the greatest athlete on the planet? Named that at the time.
Yep. And have 6 children, and then all of a sudden you can be gay. But if you're gay and you decide not to be gay anymore, then there is a problem. You don't know what you're talking about. You're loony. Like bigotry, really. like let's be honest here. It's when when somebody doesn't support your point of view, and then you go and lash out at this person. You basically go lash out at that person. But, a person can wait 65 years to allegedly change their gender to female. That's perfectly normal. That shouldn't raise any scrutiny or any questions.
In the middle of nowhere.
And if you have any questions, then you're homophobe or trans or whatever.
Well, it's true, but I'm just, I have no confusion, D-Train. I personally don't have, any confusion over what I should call him. He says his name is Caitlin, so all right, that's his name, but he's still just a man with the name Caitlin. It's just, this is a male, and, we don't, contrary to popular belief and how much we wish it for it to be true, we don't label ourselves the way we want to. And that's that. We live in, and certainly, I feel this way, so I am this way. It's just fucking...
Here's a tangible example of that. Remember back in the days in the hood where, people were like, I'm not black, I'm brown. Because that was the literal color of their skin. But I'm not black, I'm brown. No, not even that. Not even.
Oh yeah, I'm black. Oh yeah, I'm not black, I'm brown. Yeah, they say that. Yeah, absolutely. So now
people say that forever. People say that till this day, and it doesn't change the fact that you're still black on the plantation.
Yes, absolutely, and it's white people who are doing the classifying, and that's that. And it's certainly just it's. Oh, I feel this way, so I am this way. This is not, feel good kindergarten. Oh, you feel like this? Okay, now you're, a superhero. No, it's not like that. It's a mental illness, and he needs help, not, a plastic surgeon.
Like I said, if I decided I was going to be Joan of Arc tomorrow, like people would, just think, I was ridiculous and I was
No,
crazy.
they would not. No, they would give you an award and say that you're strong for coming out and knowing what you want to be. Because there's no such thing as crazy anymore. I think that's
definitely not true. That's definitely not true. You can ask Mr. Ezel Ford. He just said, "Oh, that nigger is crazy. That's why I shot him." And that's that.
This is true. But also, let's not forget about the fact that there's I was watching a documentary. There's a huge closing of mental institutions and conversions to prisons. A lot of the times, the people who are in these mental institutions or visiting these medical clinics ended up having to go to real prison and just being in the psych ward in these prisons. And it was certainly pretty rough. Just the documentary I've seen. It's actually on Netflix. It's pretty good.
Kind of reminds me of Batman, because all of those all those criminals in the Arkham Asylum were criminally insane. So they're all crazy. Interesting.
One thing I wanted to bring up to you, D-Train, and Player Hater, is Tom Hanks' son. Are you guys familiar with what's going on with him?
Very familiar.
Yes, and I specifically want to ask, especially D-Train, since you've dealt with wiggers and rapped with wiggers and everything, and what is your take on his explanation for saying nigger, and it's only okay for me to say it to my friends and for me to say it in my music, and pretty much everybody left him alone after that, to be honest. But what is your take on it?
He's an incoherent piece of shit, man. I don't know. He's just an idiot. He's a racist. And I look at him and he looks just like Tom Hanks, and I just think Gump every time I look at him. It's hilarious. I just think he's practicing racism. The fact that he's a gangster rapper at all, given his background, and given that he hasn't had to strap for anything, he's not even one of those white people who grew up poor and in the hood, and he doesn't have any claim to any of this. So it's kind of like whatever, dude.
Player Hater, is it okay for him to say it?
No, it's not. It's never okay for any white person to utter that word for any reason whatsoever.
Yep.
Even in conversation about it.
Even in quoting people in front of black people?
Even in quoting people.
Even in the classroom when it's academic?
Especially in the classroom when it's academic. You can say the N-word and leave it at that. So, I don't know Tom Hanks' son's name, but I hope he fails at everything in life.
Oh, my God. He's winning.
He's Tom Hanks' son. I definitely agree with Player Hater. It's ridiculous. And it's doubly ridiculous because he doesn't even have any claim that these so-called wigger rappers do, where they grew up in the hood or whatever. He doesn't even have any of that. He's Tom Hanks' son. So you don't even have any explanation, much less a logical one, for why you're using this term. And I saw the picture of him with the guns in his hand too. And I was just this is too much. Too much.
Yeah, well, that's really the new racism that Dr. DiAngelo is talking about, where it's not good versus bad. It's I do what I want, and you uppity Negro stop talking about it and stop complaining. Right. That's really what, at least that's the dynamic I see. Particularly when it comes to Mr. Tom Hanks' son.
Pretty much. I feel like it's the same thing with Iggy Azalea, who repulses me more.
Oh God.
Frankly, because she's a white female, and
there's a movie with like Jason Statham and The Rock, and I can't watch it because she's on screen. I'm so sad, like literally.
Yeah, to be honest, she repulses me even more than Tom Hanks' son, and I don't even think she's used the N-word in any of her music. But she did say she was the runaway slave master, and I've been repulsed by her ever since, especially since she ended up getting with Nick Young from the Lakers. I'm repulsed by her.
How much more repulsed would you be if she ended up upgrading to Kevin Durant?
Stop that.
Because I'm right?
Oh man, oh jeez. Yeah, I think my repulsion level would go, triple, quadruple.
Well, Star just said recently that Iggy Azalea is probably the best female rap lyricist right now, and right now she is way better than Remy.
I gotta do the applause track.
Doesn't he mean T.I.?
Stop it. But yes, he says she has better lyrics and bars than Remy Ma right now.
Remy Ma is rusty. Remy Ma's been in prison for 10 years. What about Nicki Minaj?
Well, he said that she's neck and neck with Nicki Minaj, but that's about it. There's nobody else in the rap game better than Iggy Azalea.
Is this the same Star who said that white women are the salt of the earth?
Yes.
And was he sipping vodka?
But his mother's white, correct?
Yes, he has a white mother, white Italian mother.
Okay.
And was he sipping vodka when he made these remarks?
Oh no, he was like, this is water I'm sipping, not vodka.
I hope you can hear the applause track that I'm.
Hey, I'll get the sound effects for the show. I'll get an audio clip for the show, and we can't use that one. But hey, he's entitled to his opinion. He said what he said.
He's a victim.
Yes, he is.
He's a victim. I would actually like having him on the program though, because he does actually have some profound things to say sometimes.
Really? Like what?
I've listened to some of his episodes and I've been surprised, kind of like what he said. He likes to hype himself up with those applause tracks. He often uses the applause track if he says something stupid.
So yeah, we are. We certainly need to come back for our interracial dating episode. That we haven't forgot about that. That's certainly something that we would love to discuss, especially with Player Hater. We want to hear some, some experiences, or at least, your opinion on that.
No comment. No comment. What was the name of the app you said again?
I'm done.
How do you feel? Is feminism more oppressive than racism?
Stop.
What was it? CoonAssSimpleTime.com?
Stop it. No, it's Mixie. It's called Mixie.
Oh, jeez.
Because, you're trying to make some mixed kids.
Which are really black kids who think they're better than other black people?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No. Because it's not like that, all the time. Yeah.
Stop. Just stop.
Yeah. So, yeah. The broadcast is about to end. We have a couple minutes left, so before we go, is there anything, any last comments or anything like that?
Oh man, the Tom Hanks son with the gun, man. I think that just that fucked me up. I think that came out last week, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I can't take it. I just can't take it anymore. Like,
well, D-Train, get back on the track.
And something has to be done about the system, because I just saw that and I was just like, wow. You know, ever since I've been like doing like counter racist like broadcasts and stuff, like my level of like recording music has like dropped away low. Like even like when I'm on hiatus, yeah. Like I just
why is that? Why is that?
You know, I still love rap music and everything. I love the battles and stuff. But you feel kind of awkward, like especially like if you're not doing a track that's like specifically